Matthew Armelli is our next write-in. What's up, guys? How are you feeling months removed from console releases? It seems Xbox just keeps slamming on all cylinders with hype announcements and good press. Meanwhile, Sony seems to be dead in the water and sinking fast when it comes to consumer goodwill. Since the consoles were heavily constrained and will be presumably throughout the rest of the year, do you think Xbox is in a good position to gain back customers they lost during the 360 era? I've already had a couple of friends slide back to Xbox after ditching the last generation. The longer people are waiting to buy a PS5 in just time, Xbox can and is using to shine a big golden spotlight on their ecosystem and Game Pass. Is it enticing enough to change the minds of people in line for PS5s to hop over to the Series X and S line? It would seem to me that while Xbox pushes value and quantity on their end and Sony keeps floundering as their respective boxes become more and more available, Xbox seems poised to gain huge ground. Is console scarcity a positive thing for Xbox right now? What can Xbox do to keep dominating the news and potential customers' mind share? Love you too. Bye. Thank you, Matthew. We love you as well. So I was thinking about this earlier this week of how we keep hearing about these constrained consoles. And when you combine that with the lack of exclusives, that's why it's going to be important. Pay attention when Returnal drops and when Ratchet drops. Pay attention to numbers, conversation, news cycle. Pay very close attention. Because right now, I think it looks like and it's perceived that Xbox is winning. And they are, by the way, winning over a lot of PlayStation fans. That's for sure. We have, how many people have written into our show week in, week out saying, I got my first Xbox for how many years? So they're doing a good job. And it's showing through feedback through our show where we have PlayStation fans listening in. That's what it's all about. So they are doing a good job and they are winning fans over, as we talked about at the top of the show with a lot of your questions. But when it comes to right now, I think the reason it looks like Xbox is winning is because with no games, they're making big announcements to push value on the system early, where PlayStation is asking for your patience till you get something like Returnal, which expectations are high for this game. People are really hoping it's something good, and it looks good. But right now, Microsoft has the ability to, you don't have to wait for games because games are coming out. So something like Resident Evil 8 Village, something like that, they could say, let's make a Game Pass deal for this so we have a big announcement before E3, right? Like they have the ability because they, number one, have the money to do that, but B, if a company is willing and Microsoft has that cash to pay, they can make the news whenever they want to. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's a big point that's being pushed here is getting an Outriders, getting a MLB The Show is huge because nothing else, it would be huge anyway, but nothing else is happening right now. So I think that's a big point here is that with it being scarce, and you see PlayStation sitting there going, Returnal, Ratchet, please wait. Well, Xbox is like, boom, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. We're going to bring you this. Here's another edition. We're bringing Bethesda into the fold officially. Like, yeah, like they're announcing everything at a quiet time where I do think the scarcity, I want to say it's helping them, but it's pushing people to their side for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there's really not.
Let's go.
Yeah. It definitely, I think it helps huge. I think also people have a tendency to buy things based on hype and that the hype starts to wear off. And you look at the offerings for different, as long as you're an open consumer, open to everything, and you look at the offerings and you might think to yourself, well, instead of getting the PS5 first and the Xbox later, now it looks like maybe it makes more sense for me to get an Xbox now and get a PS5 later and play those games when they're on sale or whatever. And so to me, none of this is surprising. I think we pretty much already stated that this was pretty positive for Microsoft. And so I don't think that's changed. I personally think it is. And I think the longer it lasts, it hurts Microsoft because they are also, restricted. But of course it helps them. I think the biggest one, Returnal, I don't know how that's going to work, and I don't know how Ratchet and Clank sells through and all that stuff. But what I have noticed is that, dude, I don't know why, but Outriders was huge. It was huge in its PR and its zeitgeist, Twitch.
Game, that's why.
And it's bullshit. And I'm just joking. There is a lot good about that game. But
I know.
What I mean is, that was Microsoft's probably biggest get. I know that sounds weird, but Bethesda, we haven't even seen anything other than old games, which is great. Yeah. And I can't wait. But what I'm saying is for now, Outriders was day and date, which then you start going, well, that's $60 I just saved. Then you look at another 2 or 3 games, you're like, that's 60, and pretty soon all you need is 10 games to be $600 of savings, and suddenly you're like, well, I'll just get an Xbox then. Like, that doesn't, because there's another 50 games that I could add on to this list of games I'm going to save money on, and I'll buy the ones I want. Somebody told me this a couple days ago, and I fucking attacked them on Twitter, but somebody was like, I want to own my games. And I'm like, dude, I have no clue what world you live in, but those are not connected. By the way, Mick Fury, I said I would get through a podcast without saying what world do you live in, and I fucking just didn't get through it. Got all the way to the end. He was assuming I wouldn't make it, and I didn't. But yeah, man, somebody was saying that.
Wait, real quick? Did he like? Is like that's like one of your quotes? Like, what world do you live in?
Multiple people have been like, I want a statue of Carrick, like. Because when you talk and do news, I'm like, but whenever you say something that like they say that I always go back. Mick wrote it. He's like, he goes back and he's like, what fucking world do people live in? And he's like, I guess it's become like a thing where everybody's like, that's what they were waiting for. And they tweeted me a couple days ago about it. But
great.
Yeah, for that kind of stuff, it's sort of true, man. It's like it's sort of true. I think all this is pretty positive for them. I mean. The only other company I don't hear about is Nintendo, which maybe they're not connected to all this, but I haven't seen them take advantage. I guess I would have expected them to try to take advantage of these not being out. Maybe they don't need to. Maybe the advantage is already theirs and they're selling and they just don't care. I don't know. But I was wondering what Switch was thinking or what Nintendo was.